Hello everyone, this is the advanced tips and tricks part of these two videos. In the first one I showed you the basics of the game and how to do everything. In this part I want to focus on how can we understand what type of damages that we do, how can we scale it, how can we survive, and what are the small things that you need to consider when you are making your own build, how to use the build planner, and how to do proper nether gear crafting, defenses, and doing damage. So the first will be the general tips, then about a small thing about damage, and then about defenses, then about nether gear, and finally the build planner. So far in this game, most things work exactly as described, which is very refreshing. And the one thing that I find weird is that the AoE distance is very unclear to me. What they mean about 2 yards, 4 yards, how big these are. It seems to me that 4 yards is the entire screen, but maybe I see something wrong. The first thing when you are considering building your character is to know that there are several types of damages that you can do. The first is primary and secondary skills, and then there is support skills and indirect skills. Support skills considered as indirect skills because they are not secondary or primary skills that you use. And indirect skills are such as this flashing dart is an indirect skill because it's triggered, or for example this lightning is an indirect skill, or the damage over time from burn will be considered as an indirect skill, and you will be able to see here how much damage do they do. They usually do elemental damage, but not all of them. For example, poison do skill damage. So what you should learn about this is that support skills, if you want them to use for damage, for example the turrets here, will be doing indirect damage for you. And there are several things that only proc for your primary and secondary skill. For now, for me, this is my primary and this is my secondary skill. And this is where everything that you click will count as a primary or secondary skill. Everything that you don't won't count as one. So the perfect example here is Immortal Arrow. The Immortal Arrow part, where you send out this arrow, is the secondary skill that I use. But the indirect skill that it has is the Wandering Arrow, which I don't control, it just do damage on its own. So it won't count as a secondary skill for the secondary skill effects. Okay. There are also skill tags that you should consider when you are making your build. For example, arrow shot is a projectile. You can see it counts as a projectile right here. Rain of arrows is considered as an area effect, and Architect of Death Turret Syndrome will be considered as a totem. Totems are not minions, so if you are getting minion damage increase, totems won't get a damage increase out of it. There is a different tag for it that you can do as an increase. And also there is melee, and for example stab is a melee. The last ones are special, for example Fist of Wild and Immortal Arrow, because these usually have a main part, which in this case is a projectile, and a secondary part, which is an indirect damage. This is why it's usually called special, because it cannot be strictly fitted into one. Okay, there are effects that will only affect your primary or secondary skill, as I told you. The best example for this is this bow. In the description, you can see that this bow, not this bow, sorry, but the ring for it, and I need to get my actual gear in a moment. So this legendary ring effect will do additional damage on your primary skill. It doesn't affect your secondary or your indirect damage, so they won't do as much, but my arrow shot will do this extra damage. If you go for the skills, you can see here that, for example, here, the cost of your skills is reduced by 5% for each secondary skill you cast. So if I talent this out, I won't use it because arrow shot is my primary and I never use my secondary skill, so this won't be ever triggered by me. But there are secondary skill effects on this tree that you can check, for example this one. And if you want to build around those, you can make actual build considering that you are getting a lot of debuff on your secondary skill. Also, it's worth mentioning that you can only life leech and mono leech by default with your primary and secondary skill. Your indirect damage won't do this, but there are legendaries that can help you with this. And also, trigger effects will be only triggered by your primary or secondary, and by default, not by other things. Again, legendaries can change this, but for example, a projectile can fork. Fork is considered as a trigger effect because it happens when you hit an enemy, and it can happen only one time or as a countable amount of time, like in Overwhelm, where it can happen more than once, but it's a finite amount. Your indirect damage by default cannot trigger this, so you won't be able to use, for example, fork with light dart, flash dart. But non-triggered parts such as skill type effects, for example pierce, rebound and projectile speed, will affect indirect damage effects such as flash dart, will be affected by projectile speed. Also, by default, only your primary and secondary skills can be imbued. If we go here, you can see this. This is a light imbue, and as you can see, only primary and secondary skills are affected by this. This is true for all the imbue effects that you can find around. There are legendaries that modify this, but by default, this is how it works. Okay, let's go then through the damage types that you will be able to do. This is split into two categories. You either doing elemental damage or skill damage as a damage type. The skill damage will be blocked by physical resistance, as I understand, and elemental damage will be blocked by elemental resistance. So if we go to this here, your armor will be blocking physical or this skill damage, and elemental resistance will be blocking elemental damage. This is also true for the enemies that you fight. They are either, most of them will do physical damage to you, but if you see, for example, someone shooting a fireball at you, it will be likely elemental damage. Most of the elemental damage that you will come across against you will be on-ground trigger effects that want to hit you, and environmental effects that you need to dodge, such as this fireball or the lightning that goes through the screen. And the way this is built up is skill type, skill damage is mainly made out of two parts, which is raw damage. You will find raw damage usually on your gear, and reaper damage, which tends to be a flat amount that your reaper gives you. If you add this together, you will get the scaled image. And this scaled image, then I will show you what I use here. So the road image first will be multiplied by the road image multiplier, such as on your gear, if you have multipliers, they are all added together, and you will say, let's say you have like 50% extra from this, then this will be 1.5. And if you have extra road image from your legendary effects or any other places, such as here, you can get extra road image from row boost. Then this additional multiplier will be not additive but multiplicative with your additional multiplying effects. Repaired image is added, and after this, additional image will be added to the whole thing. I'm fairly certain this is the point where additional image is added, because I think this will be considered as the skill-based image. And then this will be improved by skill multipliers. The way I think how this works is because I'm fairly sure that this image multiplier here for arrow shot works for my additional image. Otherwise, I won't be able to do this much damage. And after all the skill multipliers that you can get are multiplied, then you can multiply this by crit damage and ancestral strike damage. And what I didn't wrote here, but at the end of it, there is an enemy that you hit. If they have armor, then the damage reduction from the armor will be multiplied here. So it will be a bad effect for you if you don't have 100% penetration. And also, if you have extra damage against elite mobs, such as from here, you can get extra damage, increased damage against isolated enemies, for example, or increased damage against elites. These are all multipliers that you will get the end of it based on the target that you hit, but you won't see it on your calculations because these are entirely dependent on the target. I could be wrong about this, but if this isn't how it works, then my build wouldn't work as well as it does right now. So I'm fairly sure the additional damage goes here and not in other places. But if you know something that I don't, please feel free to correct me, because I'm still learning this. The second I want to showcase is an elemental damage over time calculation that I will want to make a build around, because there is a legendary cape effect that will give you 4% maximum enemy life as a damage over time added damage. And if it works how I think it should work, then elemental damage will be multiplied by elemental multipliers. This doesn't affect it. You can add your Reaper it here with a legendary effect, but by default you don't get this. And then I think the dot stacks will multiply this and don't affect the additional damage. But maybe it does. I will have to test it. And then the additional damage is added here. By the dot stacks, I mean most of your dots are a single stack, but there are talents, such as this one, that means that your burn can stack up to 7 times. And there are stacks here that is this one, that gives 3 additional stacks for it. So with this, you can stack your burn up 10 times if you want to. I don't think this will work for the 4%, but if it does, then the whole thing is even more broken than I thought. So from this, you get the skilled image, as, for example, if I want to do a burned image, this will be the burned image, skilled image calculation. And then, because that's a dot, the whole thing is a dot, should be considered as one, will be multiplied by, on your gear, the dot image multipliers that you have, which you can stack around 400%, easy. And then it will be increased if you have the legendary for it, your crit damage and your ancestral strike damage. If you crit and do ancestral strike, which you can also achieve 100% each if you want to. With this, I might be able to make a build where a single dot will do 100% of the creature's maximum life as an HP dot, which would be a very fun build, so this is what I will be working on. But it's entirely possible that this whole thing doesn't work, and this 4% is added by the very end of this, and you don't get any of these. And in that case, that build should be changed because it will be dead. But the images that you can scale other ways are strong enough that you can still make a dot build that is very strong. I'm sure about this, but this is the way I want to go. Okay, so as I said, indirect image cannot leech, so if you plan your made image to be indirect, such as Frostbolt, you need to plan around this and either change this by Reapers or Legendaries, or get different type of regeneration for yourself. This also comes to an important point where you are considering your build, such as in this game, the different stats from different sources are multiplied together. So the different sources, by that I mean that Pierce is a bad example. Attack speed here will be added to every similar attack speed increase which is on your item. So all your items are added together as one. But if you're, for example, on your skill you get attack speed, it will be a multiplier effect for this, not an added increase for it. This is why these things that you can find here for elemental damage are considered very, very strong, because these are individual multipliers that are not additive but multiplicative with your damage. So if you get loads of these, then your damage can skyrocket to the millions. Okay, the doing damage part, what I want to talk about is, in this game, it looks like there are enough multipliers that you can make almost any build work that you want. So if you take one that you find nice, for example, Thunderstruck with lightning damage, you can make a build that your entire build is around this one effect, and it will be a viable good build if you build it properly. But you can also use your Reapers to find out what's the build that you want to play. So for example, you just go around and find one, and let's say you find the Shockwave of Havoc. This will do an indirect damage that is considered a very good AoE clearing thing. And if you level this up, you can build your entire build around this one thing. And you should probably do so. These are all things, all look very promising and very fun to play around with. So you don't need to stick to one Reaper to do damage. I simply chose this, both the Rising Sun, as the most straightforward way to do a large amount of damage, and a Roshet is a very good way to deliver that. Just to clarify how my build works, the way I thought about it, this makes it in the legendary version that I will have 1 HP and I can use my life leech to increase my shield. So if I do millions of damage per second, then my life leech will be in the hundreds of thousands. And that means that my shield will be at the maximum possible 1 million part, where it will give me a lot of extra damage because there is a legendary that gives me additional damage based on my light shield. These two things are what my build is built around. You can also count the, I guess, the gloves in because this is my life leech, but you can actually craft life leech in other places. The more interesting thing I want to talk about is the defense, because in this game there are several ways that I already found that can be excellent for defense, and you pretty much never die if you build properly. Your defense is up. The first thing is armor and elemental resistance. I already talked about. This also includes evasion as a defensive layer. Usually in these games, the evasion tends to be a very bad defensive layer because when you get hit, you will be hit in such a with such high numbers, then your character will die. So it doesn't matter that you dodge 99 hits. The one hit that gets you will kill you instantly. But in this game, there are several things that are provided for you that is made so that this damage is mitigated, and then you can play around evasion itself. It's also worth mentioning that elemental damage is multiplicative with other resistances. So for example, I have more than 100% lightning resistance, which means that as you can see, I will have a way lower chance to get negative effect from that. And my resistances are increased against it. So what this means is that this effect, it doesn't really count for me because I have absolute 0 as an elemental resistance. But if I had like 1,000, then this will multiply it. So this doesn't mean that you are immune to it, but you have a way higher resistance against it. There is a very good headgear that will give you 30% on each, which is considered very good. The next thing will be a rant, because I don't know why I saw maybe like 4 videos right now, build guide videos, where they use a headgear as a cheat death mechanic, which is an absolute garbage one. There is one where your evasion gives you a chance to dodge death if you would be killed, and this is one of the worst headgear that you can wear in this game. There are 3, and I counted it, 3 headgears, which is more than 10% of the headgears that you can actually get, that provide you actual cheat death mechanic that will work 100%. This one will only work like 80% of the time or 90% of the time, but 10% of the time you will be dead. So this isn't a good way to defend yourself, because if you actually use your cheat death mechanic because you don't have other defenses, then every 10th map or so you will be dead and you have to start it over. This is a very bad way to do this. I don't know why everyone suggests this absolute garbage headgear, but they do. And even worse, they don't even show you that you can wear a back for it that would at least make it somewhat viable, because with this back, if they are hitting you, when the damage is calculated, you have a chance that you will be already attacking with, let's say, ancestral damage, and you will be back around like 95% chance to dodge the hit, and then you will have a 95% chance to dodge the death mechanic as well. But they don't even use this one, so I don't know what they are doing. This is absolutely insane to me. Do not listen to them. Just get this headgear, this exact one that I show you, and this is 100 times better than they can do. If you die more than once every minute, then your build is bad and you should consider remaking your build because it's not a viable build strategy. It's that simple. This gives you 10-second immunity for in every 60 seconds. What more do you want? This is way better than the evasion one. Okay, I will show you my main defenses as an evasion combo. I showed it already in other videos. The main one is this belt that will reduce every damage that I take to a maximum 30% of my life and shield. And this is very good because since I don't have any armor or anything, it means that even if every hit I take, it will be at worst 30% of my shield. And I can mitigate it further by turning it into a damage over time. And what this means is that if I have a decent amount of regen and leech, then I can keep up, let's say, 20 or 30 damage hit I took all at once because I have enough regen for it. And this is very good because with evasion, I won't be taking that much damage, so I will take like 1 damage every 10 seconds. So this is a very good defense that you can use on all of your characters. If you want to survive, you just stack evasion and get these 2 gear and you are semi-immortal. The next thing to talk about is that shields are very OP in this game. The light shield stacking I use is obviously very broken, but even if you don't use this, even if you do use another Reaper, just by getting this and using your primary or secondary skill, and if you have enough, or you don't even need to use primary secondary skill because you can do indirect damage that do ancestral strike. Actually, there is a legendary for it. And with this, you can pop hundreds upon hundreds of globes on yourself, and you can collect them, and you will be able to keep up like a 50k light shield on yourself, which is a very good defense that you can use, even if you don't use the one Reaper that I do. The second thing is you can get Dark Ritual, which is a very good damage boost, as you can see. And there is a legendary that will give you light shields whenever you use your Shadow Imbue. And this means you can consistently keep up around a 5k light shield on yourself, which will regen in every like half a second. So again, this is a very good defensive layer that you can utilize for a very low amount of cost, because all you need to do is get your ancestral stone that is movable from here to here, and you will already get this very big damage increase and the light shield effect. The last shield that I want to talk about, that I will use in my next build, is that runes can be very powerful, and there is a special one called Thornbite here that you can plan your entire defenses around, because as you can see, every time this procs for me, it gives me a shield of 2600 every time this is proccing, and there is a limit of 50 something that I can reach with it. With a mage, I would be able to proc this almost like once every second or maybe every 2 seconds. And I can increase this drastically by using a chess piece that will turn all my evasion that I have currently into armor. And I can use toughness here to turn my armor, parts of it, into elemental resistance. What this would mean is that I would be able to stack this Thornbite shield to like 200,000k, and I will regen around 30,000 every second, which is a very good defensive layer, considering that you will also have like a 80% damage mitigation from armor and elemental resistances. So this will be used in my next gear guide. The next defensive layer is the one that I don't have. What I want to talk about is health. In this game, stacking health is a very viable way to do your defensive, and also you can increase your offensive with it. So if you look around, there are things that use your logged missing health or just maximum health, and will give you different type of damages that you can build around. So you can easily stack your health to the high heaven to like 200 to 500k, and then you can use it also as a damage source. And the maximum damage that you can expect from mobs is the fireball in the end game has like a 300,000, close to that, one-shot potential, and there are some effects that do that. And if you have a 90% resist, then it's a 50k hit. So if you have more than 50k life, you even survive that. And the usual damage is around 50,000 as I saw it. And with an 80% damage mitigation and the good enough reach, if you have like, let's say 100k HP just by itself and 80% armor and magic resist, then you will be able to survive all these hits and do just fine. Even if you don't want to do any of these fancy defensive tricks that I showed you, just by doing normal things, you can survive in this game. The last thing I want to mention here is mana stacking are also a very good defensive layer. There is an aura that you can use, which is here. And there are aura increasing effects that you can stack. So this can be a way higher number. And there is also legendaries that help you with this, and skill talent that help you with this. And I'm not sure that you can achieve 100%, but you can be very close to it. So this means that you will have a very low amount of health pool, but you will have a very large mana pool that you can use as a damage source. And you will be able to also use it as your defensive layer. Also worth mentioning that you should be careful about elemental damage in the late game. The mobs themselves don't hit as hard, but there will be several on-death effects and ground effects and fireballs and lightning bolts that will do elemental damage, and those have the one-shot potential against you. So if you have to choose between what to defend against elemental damage. Okay, the next part I want to go through is the nether gear crafting and how it works. After you slayed your warlords, you will get your first nether gears. And as you can see, these have a graft 3 on it. My current head has a graph 0 on it because I already used 3 of them. What this means is you can use this as a default legendary and craft anything that you want on it, so that's fine. And it's also cheaper because it already has the legendary stats on it, so you don't have to spend like $250,000 to get epic stats on it. But there will be another slot that opens you, and another tab that opens here, where you can put this nether gear, and you will be able to see the graph that is left. And what you can do now is you can transfer any stat that you want to this gear. So, for example, by default, I think it can't have ancestral strike as a base stat, but with grafting you can. The strong thing with this is that if you want to stack one thing to the high heavens, for example mana, you want to craft mana on everything as a base stat, this allows you to not only be at 200% of its usual value, but you use every single one of your base stat gear slot to craft mana on it. You can only have one mana increase on one item, but you can have like since you have 11 items, you will be able to have this base mana increase 11 times. So as you can see, it costs not a lot, to be honest, because one legendary Slormancer is not much, and one single run for me gives more than this amount of pure Slorm. So this is exactly one temple run for me, and I can grab this pure stat on it. If I'm not wanting a pure stat but a regular strat, then it will be a lot cheaper because I don't need the pure Slorm for it, as you can see. Other thing to mention, the reason why Nether gear is also considered broken is because this is a headgear, and let's say I need a second effect from my boots, but I can only use one. Then I can go here and take this legendary effect that I want to craft on my gear, and I don't want to use my headgear slot for anything else. I want to have this legendary effect on it. I can graft it on this gear. If I scroll down here, you can see this boots effect will be crafted onto the helm. It uses one of your grafts, but it can be done, and it's also quite cheap. If you see, it doesn't exactly break the bank. It will destroy the legendary, but you will be able to use this headgear as a boots legendary effect from now on. Okay. It's worth mentioning that by the time you are doing your Nether gear, you already finished the game. So there isn't really anything right now that you can test your gear against. So for example, I have this absolutely broken gear with a huge amount of damage that I cannot really show anywhere because the boss I defeated when I only had like 2/3 of my legendaries and none of them was Nether gear. So that's already done. And when I farmed my Nether gear, I already did it in the primordial Nether, so there is literally nothing that is as strong as that you need this Nether gear for. You only do this as a prestige thing, as a for fun thing. If your gear actually requires for you to have Nether stats, then I would suggest that that is not exactly a viable gear. It's more of a for fun build that you can do. On to magic, quantity, quality, and gold. Right now, I might change my mind later, but I believe that the one thing that you want is magic quantity and not quality. The reason for this is because magic quality will increase the chances that your white gear will be rare or epic or even legendary, which is nice, it's not bad. But in the end, the only thing that you actually care about is not legendaries, it's the pure stats. And the most important pure stats that you want to get are from white gear as a base stat. So what you want is to have the quantity really high, so you will drop 4 times as much white gear and magic and rare gear, so that you have a higher chance to get these pure stat effects that you want to collect. Okay, this is the end of Nether gear crafting. The last thing I want to show you, last section, will be the planner and how you can use it. So far, I didn't find a Wikipedia for Slormancer that is anywhere can be considered good or even halfway complete. So the best thing that you can do when you have questions is that you go to the Discord, and on the Discord channel in Slormancer, you search for your question, and quite often it will be already answered by someone. This is what I do, and this is how I try to get my information. The second thing that you can do is that you go to this GitHub site and use this planner to see what's possible for you to do. There are 3 parts here: a list of legendaries, a list of Storm Reapers, and the build planner itself. These 2 are fairly straightforward. If you go to the Reaper list, you can select which character that you are using. It only changes the look because, as you can see, otherwise it's the exact same stat. Nothing else changes. You can check primordial and you can check min-max level, and you can see the potential of each of your Reaper. If you are doing this, you can see what they can do and whether you want to build around them or not. For example, this looks like a really fun Reaper, and I want to make a build that will go around this. This is already planned. This will be probably after my dot build. Okay, the second thing is your legendary planner. And as you can see, here are the legendaries that you can use. By default, you can only get the hunter specific legendaries with your hunter. I never dropped at least anything that was considered for the mage with my huntress at least. And there are legendaries that affect skills itself. So for example, this affects arrow shot. So this is a huntress only legendary. All the rest you can see here in a list, and you can search for belts and helmets. This is very handy if you want to plan around that. Okay, I have now 10 of my legendaries, but I don't know what I want to use for my chest armor. You go here and you see all the possibilities that you can use as a chest armor piece that might help your build. This is how I planned this light stacking build first. I went through and found a place for each and every item, and then I planned my legendaries around my slots. You can check max reinforcement so you can see what happens at 15. And this won't go higher, so I think at level 20 it will be still similar, but maybe it doesn't. I just haven't noticed it, but I think my level 16 gear gives the exact same amount as my level 15 did. I also want to show this bad gear that everyone suggests. This, whenever your life should be reduced below 1, you have 0% chance to evade death and reduce to 1 instead. This chance is equivalent to your evasion chance at this ref level. This will be likely around 85 to 90%, which means you still have more than a 10% chance to actually die. Second, if you have a dot on you, such as a fire burning dot, then this will kill you anyway. So this, no matter how you look at this, this is a very, very bad way to defend yourself. Do not use this. If you go to helmets, this is the second helmet after it, already provides you with a better version of this. Here is the second one that is already better. It has a 60-second cooldown and it will give you 100% ore resistance, so a very small window when you will be immune for everything, and then this decreases gradually, but you will have enough time to leech your life back. And there is a third one that has a 10-minute cooldown, which is here. And the best thing about this is the way why you want to consider it is, for example, your shadow build might be using your life as a resource to cast spells. And if you are set to 1 life, then you won't be able to cast your primary or secondary spells. But if you use this helmet, it's a 10-minute cooldown, but it will restore you to 80% health, so you will be able to keep on damaging the boss. And you are also invulnerable for 2 seconds, which is handy. Okay, these are the two parts. Let's go to the planner. In the planner, you can import your own build, and this will help you to see what you need to improve on your own build or what other items you want to get. Or you can start a build from scratch as well. The way you import your own build is that you go here and upload an exported file, and you will type app data here and go to local and go to Slormancer, the Slormancer, and inside it you will see this save file that you use, and you click on this one and you click on open. I did something wrong. I will show it in another place, I guess. Upload Slormancer slave file. Sorry, I clicked the wrong one. This is what you do. And then you click on this character that you want, create build, and you will have your file uploaded and you will be able to see what you are using right now at this moment. So this is very handy. The other thing that you can do is when I link a build guide in my video, for example, you can use the URL provided there. I will grab it very quickly. And you can go to this place where the URL would lead you, for example, here. This is the same thing. You can import this, and if you click import, you immediately go to here, and now you can already see everything here and you can modify it to your heart content. So this is how you go into the build planner. And what I learned quite late, and thanks for the advice, you can turn an item into a Nether item by simply increasing the level over 100, since every item over 100 is considered a Nether item. So I want to put like a legendary here, a different legendary, to see what's possible. I can increase this to level 101 and it will turn into another Shroud of the Unseen. And now I will be able to graft on it things that wouldn't be possible on a normal back. So for example, if we go down, you can see this is limited. For example, Ancestral Strike is not here. If I increase this, Ancestral Strike is now here, and I can put Ancestral Strike damage here, and I can make it as a pure stat and increase it to 100, and this is how much Ancestral Strike damage I can get on one slot with this. Okay, this is the final part I wanted to mention. I hope this will help you to optimize your build. One thing to know here is, since the crafting is so deterministic, when I show a gear like this Shroud of the Unseen, this exact gear can be achieved in a very reasonable amount of time and money. So if you have, let's say, around 1 million gold and say around 60 of the expensive epic Slormite that you need to use, you will be able to craft this exact gear with the exact stat that you see here. And you can even go higher, because as you can see, not all of them is at the highest possible place, but since you are rerolling, you can reroll it to almost to the maximum level. Okay, I hope this was informative for you, and now you will be able to do your build planning properly. If you have advices for me, I want to listen, so please tell me what you know about the game that I might forgot. And I hope you will have fun. Take care. Bye.